Lena Luthor's supersuit is a mouthful. Progress ain't always progress. And the Man of Steel isn't who we thought. Supergirl Season 4, Episode 3, Man of Steel After Show starts now. Up, and away!
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
I felt this was appropriate simply because Supergirl can't breathe right now.
Very meta.
Yes.
Bringing out, you know? I felt this episode just had such a strong, aggressive tone almost.
Oh, yeah.
The whole season so far has a strong aggressive tone.
It does. It's social commentary, but it's making me feel very, very anxious. Thank you, everyone, for joining our after show discussion. My name's Tehran. I will be hosting the Supergirl After Show as we discuss Supergirl Season 4, Episode 3, Man of Steel. We will be talking about the DEO under Alex Danvers. We will be talking about Supergirl's kryptonite emphysema, Lena Luthor's supersuit, Peter Lockwood. If you don't know who he is, you will by the end of the show. Agent Liberty. If you don't know who he is, then you didn't watch the show. News and gossip, special segment, and of course, predictions from this wonderful panel. All the way to my left, we have my main man, Jorge Pallo.
What is up, Tehran?
How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, man.
It's good to hear that voice again.
Well, thank you, sir. It's good to be back.
I'm sure people in the podcast appreciate it. And of course, Zach Silverman is joining us.
How's it going, guys?
That was anticlimactic. And Heather Wake.
Hey guys, Heather White here.
I like that. You know, I was expecting Heather to maybe throw in a song.
Hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo.
And it was my fault. I shouldn't have asked.
Well,
Let's talk some Supergirl.
yes.
Supergirl, how was the overall thought on the concept of this episode, Man of Steel? Jorge?
I'm going to disagree with the Twitterverse right now, and I'm going to say it was a pretty strong episode. I like the idea of the origin story of the villain who actually doesn't see himself as the villain. In his eyes, he's the hero. So it's interesting. I like seeing the other perspective.
That's very interesting. When you mentioned, Jorge, Twitterverse, what were you referring to?
There have been some comments on the Twitterverse talking about how they weren't very happy with this episode, that they thought it was, it was maybe humanizing the villain too much. I disagree. I think because if we're going to look at it, we have to look at how it all started as well. We have to examine it. We have to dig into it. We have to cut it open. We got to and find out what makes this guy tick. Otherwise, he's not that compelling of a villain. Then he's just a guy that's going around stabbing people.
He's not dynamic. He's not
Exactly.
unique.
What were your thoughts, Zach?
I have to agree with Jorge here. I thought it was a great episode. Typically in these CW shows, we get to see the hero and his story, and we never really get to understand the backstory.
His or her story.
His
Thank
or
you,
her story.
Zach.
Thank you. So sorry about that. But we never get to see the villain's backstory. If we do get to see the villain's backstory, it's maybe a brief cutscene flashback of some sort. In this episode, it's the fall of the man. I thoroughly enjoyed watching where he went, because he wasn't always an alien hater, calling them roaches and whatnot. You got to see the understanding of why he became who he was. And I think maybe why Twitterverse was so upset was because they had to compile that all into one episode. And they did it by like 14 months, 2 months ago. And they kept doing flashbacks up into the point of where we left off last episode. So I like tonight's episode a lot.
Well, it's our own personal Supergirl. Heather, what did you think?
Bum, ba, da, bum. I always have a soft spot when shows divert for one episode their normal structure. So I always love it when they do origin stories, be it about the villain or about another character in the story. It just makes for such a deeper connection to the overall theme. And I love the play on words with the title Man of Steel. It makes the casting of Lockwood make a lot more sense to me, since he has such this
The slick back hair.
iconic Superman look. You know,
There was a point in the episode where he was running around and he had what I think was the 90s version of Superman, with the white shirt open and like blue under, and his hair was slicked back, and he looked like he was about to just go off and fly away, but
he couldn't. This was when he was going to save when his father was
Yes,
in the steel mill and
yes.
buried underneath.
His father, Peter Lockwood, which we will get to, of course. And to Heather's point, when you were saying I have a soft spot, I'm so glad you said for origin stories and not xenophobes, which is where I thought I was going. As it would have actually made sense because they did humanize the villain in this episode. We saw a lot of backstory regarding Ben Lockwood, who eventually becomes Agent Liberty, as we all know, and we see at the end of the episode. I did get a feel of an American History X type
Yes, that's a good
storyline,
correlation.
where there was looking back and seeing how we got to this point. We saw the slippery slope, which we don't often see in villain stories, where it's the opposite, the antithesis of redemption. When it comes to redeeming qualities, one of the people who I feel always comes through with redeeming qualities is Alex Danvers. Do you feel that Alex Danvers and the DEO under her leadership is thriving? And I speak on this because in this episode, we hear her specifically with angst say, I can fix this. I can fix her. And that's an Alex Danvers character. So is the DEO thriving, or do we miss John Jones?
I miss John. I'm
miss
not
John
gonna
as
lie.
well.
I miss
Yes.
John. I feel like Alex is very capable, but she's not. There's a disconnect there. You know, she feels a little bit too close to, like she's too close to Supergirl to be her boss.
Well, they are sisters.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. You know, that's my point.
I think we're at a point in the show as a whole, and you could see this in other CW shows, The Flash, Arrow. There's a change of character, and characters move from one job to the next, and it's almost as if the show writers are trying to figure out where they could fall into place when more new characters come in. I feel like Alex might have fell into that little pigeonhole where right now we're trying to try her out as the boss of everybody at the DEO, and we loved her character who she was before. Prior to that, she was the second in command, I guess, and good sister to Supergirl. But now as the boss, she has a whole new role to play, and I don't know if I do enjoy her as that character, because it brings on a whole new list of qualities that she has to kind of overlook with everyone underneath her, and I don't think she's running the DEO as best as John had.
And Heather, is Alex Danvers too close to her sister to run the DEO effectively?
Well, just by judging how she's handled at different points of the episode, I would have to say yes.
I don't think the two correlate, though. Whether be the fact she is good enough to run the DEO because she's sisters with Supergirl. Like, that's just an ancillary fact of the matter, because she oversees so many other things, but we're only seeing their interaction, obviously, for what the show is.
But you
Yeah,
know what
I
is
think-
also, I'm sorry. You know what else also is an extenuating circumstance is the fact that she's also dealing with an entire new team. She's the head of the DEO,
Yeah.
and she's got Brainy, not
Win.
not Win. You know,
That's Zach's
Win back,
favorite.
Bren win.
yeah. I mean that's another. You know, so it's an entirely new dynamic.
Change of cast.
You know, it's a change of cast. You're also bringing in new recruits into the DEO, like Jensen, right? Who apparently wasn't properly vetted. You know, and whose shoulders does that fall on? Is that Alex, or is that the system itself?
Well, Alex does seem to have an affinity for Kara as her sister and uses that as a primary goal. Is it because Kara is merely her sister, or because Kara also happens to be, as Supergirl, the greatest asset that the DEO has?
Oh, I think it's about them being sisters more so than anything. I think that's the first relationship that, out of every other relationship that Alex cares about, is that is her sister. When she said she's going to save Supergirl, she's saying I'm going to save Kara.
But
yeah,
does-
they are both emotional anchors.
But does
for the
that
other.
put the DEO in some type of circumstance? Is there a conflict of interest between the two? Simply because if there is a primary goal of saving the planet and saving Supergirl, which one does Alex Danvers choose?
Well, as you saw in the previous season, she chose. I'm thinking back to when she had to choose to blow up the entire
Atmosphere?
atmosphere,
Right. Yeah.
and she thought Supergirl was still exposed to that,
And she chose.
and she chose to save the world basically over her sister.
So we have seen Alex
Make the hard decision.
Make the hard decision. Can she continue to do so, Zach?
I don't think so. It's very clear in this episode that she is splintering. She's breaking, and I think she's had too many encounters where she almost lost her sister, and this is one where Brainy has said there's nothing you can do. We can't even move her.
She was the one, however, that did come up with the idea of going to Lena Luthor, right? So she was
Yes.
able to come up with some sort of plan. She said, "Okay, maybe I can't fix her, but I can ask someone else."
Right.
And she did that.
Which is a redeeming quality because she knows when to step down and not just try and bust through herself and just try and just keep going on.
Do all these actions and consequences happen under John Jones's leadership of the DEO?
I think it was a different story. If it was a different set of guidelines, I don't believe we were in that because aliens weren't so much known in this
They weren't as
universe.
exposed.
They weren't
And
as
I-
exposed.
I do overall agree that just structurally that character is in a transition, and that's why we don't see her have a lot of pivotal moments.
Also, when Jean was in charge, she was a field agent, and you never had any doubt when Alex was in the field that, the good guys were going to win because we trusted her in the field all the time. Now this is just looking at her in a different light and, whether
Just
or not
to
it fits.
delegate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now it's very different. Alex isn't in the field. She's running the DEO, and we see that there's obviously we have the people who leave the Jensens in the DEO and people of that nature. And the DEO, if you remember correctly, was heralded originally by someone who had such a similar premise.
Yeah.
So when John Jones takes up that mantle, he's impersonating someone who
Hank Henshaw.
Hank Henshaw, who actually was someone who might have followed Agent Liberty.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And that's a very interesting contrast that we must keep in mind. We also have to keep in mind that Alex Danvers did step down and invite Lena Luthor to come in, who saves Supergirl for all intents and purposes, at least for this episode, with her super suit, which we all took painstaking attempts to write down. We came up with the radiation-controlled proto-environment housed in a vacuum-sealed mechanical exoskeleton contained in a spring-loaded 2mm disc.
There you go.
That's a mouthful.
And I don't know if Wynn could say that, but Brainy got it and knocked it out the park. So excellent work for Lena Luthor. How did everyone perceive this super suit?
Oh, I was stoked. That was awesome.
It
Awesome reveal.
definitely paid off.
I called it last week. I'm just saying.
You did call
I
the
called
super
it
suit,
last
and it was
week.
very cool. Was it as cool as you thought or imagined?
The dispersal unit for the supersuit was pretty cool. That's kind of like that liquid metal thing that came out of that 2mm spring-loaded disc, right?
Exoskeleton contained in a spring-loaded 2mm disc.
Radiation.
Where's
pretty
everyone
cool.
have one of those?
Where's the spring-loaded action happening from? Because it kind of just dissolved out of it.
Yeah. I would.
I think they just threw that one in there just for
I think we'll get a lot more out of the suit next episode. Of course, we're going to see it in action, but just the reveal, pretty dope. I like it.
And the look of the suit. We saw like a darker Supergirl. Even the S on the chest was something a little more metallic and matte. How did everyone like that?
Yeah, it's definite
Imagery.
armor to combat Agent Liberty, for sure.
ooh,
Suit versus suit,
suit
man.
versus suit. Okay, I kind of like that. Kind of evening the playing fields a little bit because every season we've had Supergirl just being Supergirl, superpowers. Now she's kind of, I think, dulled a little bit.
So, do you think so? Now that she's infected with the kryptonite, then you think she's going to be weaker?
I think she's maybe
than
more,
normal?
maybe a little bit more akin to a Daxamite, where super strong still, but maybe not be able to fly or have some of her powers.
But does Agent Liberty's suit make him super strong? I
No.
don't think it does. I think it's just body armor, so they're still not even.
It's
Sorry.
something protective.
Yes, it's something protective. Yeah. So
Well,
it's more of the idea of who he is and what he's going for what to mean. I mean, there's a lot of power behind an idea.
Right.
Well, we shall see. We did see a lot of power behind ideas in this episode specifically. However, before we got there, we saw glimpses of certain characters that we have to touch upon as they are important. We saw another look at Cat Grant, who has been MIA for a lot of the seasons. She kind of shows up once in a while in a blue moon, and this time we saw her on TV leading a press conference.
Yep, for the new president.
For the new president. And Cat Grant, how did she handle this press conference? I felt like she was extremely Cat Grant about it.
Absolutely.
There's no other way for her to be.
Yeah. Somebody get me an aspirin. I feel Tylenol coming on. Or I have a headache coming on. Yeah, like, yeah. I liked it.
No,
Yeah, I always love Cat Grant moments.
yeah, I love a Cat Grant cameo anytime.
Cat
Say-
Grant's cameos are epic.
Say that 3 times fast.
You know, I could probably say
already
that
For the sake of time.
much easier than radiation-controlled proto-environment housed in a vacuum-sealed mechanical exoskeleton contained in a spring-loaded 2mm disc.
Boom.
That's how we say it. That's how we do it. And I wonder if the steel came from Lockwood Steel. I doubt it. But we did meet the prior owner of Lockwood Steel as we go back 2 years in the show. So we start today with Benny Lockwood going to James Olsen, which we'll get to. But then we go back 2 years to season 2, actually. And it was very interesting. I was listening for context clues to figure out where in season 2 we were.
No, we went to season 1.
It was season 2 when the Daxamites...
No, it's Project Myriad.
Project
Was the first-
Myriad.
Sure,
was
Project
first-
Myriad was season 1, but
Right.
then we went to
Right,
season
gotcha.
2 with the Daxamite invasion. That's when
Yes.
everything started.
When it all really
when it all
gotcha. Yeah,
became
okay.
and that's why I was getting at. Like I was trying to pinpoint the specific episodes. I felt like the stolen alien tech was episode 5.
Right.
Then of course Queen Rhea being on television in episode 21. We get a touch of season 1 before that.
Right.
It's just very cool how it all comes full circle. We meet Peter Lockwood. Now, Peter Lockwood is Professor Ben Lockwood, who eventually is Agent Liberty's father. And this father character that plays is one that I feel we're familiar with. And that's where I got an American History X vibe. I remember in American History X where we had the father, the firefighter, start speaking just enough in a derogatory manner regarding black people. And of course, with that movie,
And it starts to
was
seep into his sons.
exactly into his son's psyche. With this one, we saw derogatory speech regarding aliens. And we also get an origin story almost of why aliens are called cockroaches,
Yeah, he explained it
Yeah.
right away, which makes perfect sense now.
which it does make
They
sense.
leave their planet, it gets destroyed, but they're able to inhabit somebody else's planet and
and survive.
And survive.
And thrive.
And
From
thrive.
what we saw, especially with the closing of Lockwood Steel. What were your overall thoughts on Peter Lockwood, Heather?
I mean, I thought he was a great character to have because you see the seeds of hatred and doubt that inflict his son. And in the same way that you get a sympathetic viewpoint of Ben Lockwood, I think you also, in a way, you see the fear that really plagued Peter Lockwood, too. I mean, he is coming from a place of loss and fear of change.
Zach?
Made my skin crawl. Definitely made me feel a certain way that was different for a CW show. I mean, they're really touching on some poignant points in our society, and I have seen American History X. Remember watching that. It's interesting to see the contrast between this is like a PG, right? CW is PG, and then obviously American
Enough
History X,
PG-13.
13, right? So it's interesting to see how far they can go, and it's still have that effect on you where you feel dirty and you feel like, all right, I've had enough of this guy. I need to go take a shower or something. I can't hear you anymore. So
Jorge.
Honestly, I was more concerned for George in that household than anybody else.
George being the son
of
the
yeah.
youngest
Ben
son,
Lockwood, yes.
because he is like a sponge.
thinks it's cool. He's like,
oh no, I've heard those words. I've heard it's okay. I've heard it at school, and he's hearing his this rhetoric as it's going on. So you see, and you see how it's already starting to seep into Ben,
It is.
right? But
he tried
now-
fighting it.
He
which
tried fighting.
I'm
it.
happy that they showed that because it wasn't just a simple fall from grace. It was this like slide, and it just one thing piled after the next.
Well,
You feel bad for him.
Yeah, well, you see, I think what they did with that as well is that they really beefed up the idea that he was an educated person.
Yes.
He's a professor at a college.
Professor, of course, being Ben Lockwood.
Yeah, Ben Lockwood. I think they played that up a lot to show that, this is an educated person who has seen...
And this is what he studies also.
His family, right. This is exactly what he studies, and has seen his family struggle, or has seen his family's tragedy, and therefore he takes that education and becomes a great orator to
the cause of
infuse the
xenophobia.
mass.
But with Peter Lockwood, we see that's the fall is Peter Lockwood losing his steel factory to the alien steel factory that opens up
The
across.
nth metal.
And we hear the words nth metal, which was very exciting, simply because it plays such a large part of the DC universe.
Vanguard, baby.
Does anyone feel that Peter Lockwood has an actual gripe with the steel factory that's opening across the street?
Well,
essentially.
not
what point?
necessarily. Because later on, when they're in the truck, that scene when the two of them are in the truck, and Ben says to Peter, "Well, you can retrofit the factory to start processing nth metal and train your guys." His father dug his heels in and said, "No, this we were built on American steel, and that's what we're going to be." And I'm sorry, but if you're going to dig your heels in, that to me is a lot like double down. Like doubling down right now.
And that's a major theme in the episode too. I mean, you have Lena Luthor saying just because we have the march of progress, it doesn't mean that you'll be left behind. And you have this one man who is incredibly afraid of being left behind, but
And
also
stubborn.
resistant to
So
change as
stubborn.
well.
But I don't know if you guys caught this, and I might be viewing this wrong. They did try to go take out a loan so that they can retrofit the factory, right?
Sure. Is anyone giving out Blockbuster loans today? No, I'm just asking.
No,
Is
you're
Blockbuster
100%.
giving-
No,
so
and it
if-
makes sense
if
as
we
to
move
why.
forward,
Exactly.
Unfortunately, there are people who are left behind, and we hear that trigger word progress. It
Yeah.
becomes a trigger word in which Professor Lockwood brings up in his speech in his classroom. But he also gave a speech to his father in which his father almost denounces Ben's education. And it's something that I feel is prevalent in a xenophobic mentality, is almost a lack of education. And that's something we saw that was actually very noble about Peter Lockwood. Peter Lockwood was just an average, ordinary guy who built a steel factory, as far as we can tell, on his own merit.
Right.
He wasn't born into wealth. He created it, and he created jobs, and he created loyalty amongst his workers. And then his workers attacked another alien who was a Bravik. We've seen Braviks throughout the episodes. We saw them recently, actually, with Otis and Mercy.
I think there was
Right.
was that the same?
Is it the same?
The creature with
alien?
the
Well, he had tusks.
the
He had one
tusks.
tusk coming out. This guy
Had
had
3 horns.
horns. That,
Well, I mean, it
projectile
was
horns.
Spikes.
Yeah.
it was the spikes, and they hit him.
Yes.
And they hit Benny, and we see that Peter is actually almost he doesn't spark. He doesn't spark the flame, but he definitely doesn't fan it out.
Right.
How
No,
do
he
we think
pours
of Peter?
gasoline on it.
How do we feel like Peter's not stopping his workers?
I think it's true to character. I think it's totally true to character. Not stopping the workers. He saw. I mean, they built the nth metal factory right across the street and said, like steel, only better. That's kind of like,
egging you on. Yeah, you're gonna cause an issue.
You're gonna cause an issue there, pal.
I don't doubt that Peter Lockwood planted seeds of rebelling earlier on either.
Right.
I doubt he was silent up until that riot.
And that's the thing. We find that silence is also a form of compliance. And there's also, when you do add fuel to these flames, they tend to get out of control. And we saw it get out of control. Just to give you a little information on Peter Lockwood, he's played by Xander Berkeley, who we've seen as Gregory from Walking Dead, an amazing actor.
The chat's talking about that right now. Actually.
And he's also from Son of Batman, Manhunter, Beware of Batman. He's voiced characters. He's very familiar with the DC universe. So excellent job there by Xander Berkeley, in my opinion, because he did exactly what he was supposed to do. He made me hate and understand somebody.
Yep.
Same for Ben Lockwood, I think, too. Both of them.
And that's what we're going to get into right now is actually Ben Lockwood, who Peter Lockwood names Ben I believe after Benjamin Franklin as much as he was quoted, and Georgie, I believe being named after George Washington, because of this history being that Ben Lockwood was a professor of history, runs in their family. And that's a form of educational component that Peter Lockwood did instill. We meet Professor Lockwood from NCU, National City University. He has, we see him give a lecture about nativism and being a nativist, and those who fear the other, and he defends them. He also, we see him from the beginning as he approaches Jimmy Olsen and tells Jimmy Olsen how come Catco's not doing anything or reporting accurately. And by accurately, he means biasedly, almost like.
Right.
Because Catco's been very good about being unbiased. He speaks about how the alien attack on the average citizen affects the average citizen, how homeowners insurance does not cover alien invasion, which I'm going to have to check. And also, also how certain stories are buried because they're in the back of the paper. And that's something that I noticed happens on both sides sometimes. I myself found myself being very upset at a recent story the New York Times printed in which they used the killer's name and called him Mr. And I was like, I don't remember them using Mr. when it comes to killers of color and things like that. Little slight things that I found were biased. It turned out I was actually incorrect. I just compared it to other newspapers. How do you feel about Ben Lockwood's first initial reaction to Jimmy Olsen and storming in there the way he did?
Well, I mean, that is always the catch-22 of media. We're supposed to get an unbiased look at an event, but is there really any such thing as an unbiased viewpoint? You know, as neutral as our news sources try to be, everybody finds a little microcosm of
Their own opinion.
of their own opinion.
In each way, we find a lot of confirmation bias whenever we look at an argument. Do you feel that Ben Lockwood has a point? Is Catco almost hiding the alien invasion and the alien quote-unquote problem because of their relationship with Supergirl, because of their relationship with Kara?
Yeah, I think they think that they're having a neutral opinion, but their sense of justice, which is an opinion and a bias in their own right, is informing what they put out there.
So they lean
towards
alien left.
Right. They lean alien left. They lean in favor of alien rights and the alien amnesty. But in some way, you see Lockwood's point of the story, which is like, well, tell a human interest story on somebody who lost their home. You know, where, you know, is Catco doing that? That's the question. And if they're not, maybe they should. Maybe they should. You know.
And I just think from all the previous tidbits we've gotten, I don't think they are.
Yeah.
No, I think it's more in favor for the fact that aliens just came to this earth and now are being more prevalent, and they're kind of running with that as like good news. Unfortunately, no one's going to really want to. I don't think anyone is really coming forward either with saying, hey, these home alien invasions are happening. They had no reason to really say anything prior seasons. This season, they're making it about that. So it's a good conflict in itself for them to be able to just say, oh, well, you know, it wasn't talked about last time, so we're going to do this now.
Well, I would love to hear from everyone in the chat. And remember, you're part of the AfterBuzz family. And actually, Jorge has an announcement for everyone at AfterBuzz and the entire family. We should have said this sooner because I want to always set the tone that you guys are welcome to join us in the chat and comment below.
Right on. All right, so I've got a little announcement here, a little live read. Hey, AfterBuzzers. Our network produces after shows for nearly all your favorite TV shows, from dramas, reality TV, sci-fi, and more. There is no network that works harder to serve television fans, but we need your help. we're asking that you please subscribe to one or more of our YouTube channels. By subscribing to our channel, YouTube will suggest content that's tailor-made for you, and you'll help AfterBuzz continue to grow. And if you're worried about pesky notifications, don't be, because they're optional. So hit that subscribe button now for this channel and check out our other AfterBuzz YouTube channels as well. Let us know you did so in the comments and we'll thank you on air. For now, thanks for being the best fans and for helping us be the ESPN of TV talk.
If that doesn't make you want to subscribe and share, I don't know what will.
I'll tell you something else too. If you guys can identify the theme song that I just read this over and comment below, I'll give you a shout out next
There we
week.
go.
That's a big deal. That's a
That'll
big
get a
deal.
comment.
Let's get back to Professor Lockwood and the transformation. So we see the initial, and then we see him give these xenophobic, almost expressive speeches during his class. Jorge, what were your thoughts on his lecturing style?
It's interesting. It's interesting because I'll tell you what. I'm doing a lot of research right now for another project of my own on the Aztecs and the Spaniards, and when Cortez came and basically annihilated the Aztecs. And I was thinking, wow, the Aztecs needed a nativist at that point.
The Aztecs needed
needed a nativist
because
at that point.
Professor Lockwood brings that point up, and he brings up if the Native Americans had a nativist mentality, maybe, and he quotes Benjamin Franklin, which I want to find the exact quote.
Oh, I have it right here.
I would
found
love
it.
to hear
Oh,
it. It's
good.
about immigrants will never adopt our culture or customs.
Right. Here it is. Why should Pennsylvania, founded by English, become a colony of aliens who will shortly be so numerous as to Germanize us instead of our Anglifying them, and will never adopt our language or customs any more than they can acquire our complexion?
There, that was it.
And
Yeah, so
before everyone gets heavy on the complexion side with Benjamin Franklin was actually speaking regarding New England itself, and the swarthy immigrants that he was speaking on were Germans, were the Dutch, were everyone but Anglo-Saxons, actually. And so that was a very Italians. He was speaking on people who we would in modern day consider white anyway. And it's interesting to note that dichotomy of someone we would all group together, and he separates himself even from there. And as he quotes Benjamin Franklin in this class, he uses the worst of the Benjamin Franklin, this nativist mentality. Now, with Zach, when Professor Lockwood says this, we see students, especially the alien students, stand up and leave. What would you have done?
Same exact thing. In a heartbeat. I mean, it was interesting because they chose to have the girl that was focused on it, that was an alien, sit and stay a little bit longer. One alien walked out, and there's actually some humans that walked out as well, which I was happy to see, and not just a segregation of, well, obviously the aliens are going to get out or walk out. I would have done the same exact thing. He had been warned prior to this. I'm sure someone had said some other things, and it looked like his class was also a little bit smaller than what it was prior to that. So he's got some reputation. I would have done the same exact thing.
That's great that you would have done that. I might have stayed for the A. Hey, I'm not paying. College isn't cheap, bro.
I'll take an F in that class for that one.
I've had a couple classes with questionable teachers, and you have to pick and choose your battles because sometimes teachers, just like the media, has a personal agenda. Heather, thoughts?
Yeah, when I was watching that, he eventually gets fired, and I just thought, I'm surprised he's just now getting fired. Really. Regarding the female alien student, I couldn't help but wonder if the teacher-student relationship had been strong at one point before he had this major change of heart, which brought on even more conflict. I just kept thinking that when I was watching this scene, because I'm sure he was just as passionate when he had a more neutral stance on it. Yeah.
That's a very interesting point. Does anyone feel sorry for Ben Lockwood up to this point? Do we feel sorry by the way the show compelled us to see the side of his story that is his truth? We see father losing the steel factory. We see the invasion, which cost him his house, and the detriment to his family. We see him being unable to save his own father and watch his demise. Do we feel bad for Ben Lockwood?
I do. I feel sorry for anyone who is characterized by their loss and has potential to be agents of change, but are so weighed down by other factors that they lose that potential. I think that's very sad.
Zach?
I cared for him up to a certain point. A man of education, the way that he has, I know it's for the TV show, it's for the writing. I don't feel someone like him would have ever fallen the way he has. So I did feel bad for him losing his house. That's horrible. And it was a very unforgiving circumstance. And John just kind of flew off and had that statement, "You're all safe now." And then the house exploded as soon as he was gone. It just sounds like he has a big cloud flying over, a gray cloud, storm cloud hanging over him that he just can't get out from underneath. But being the intelligent man that he is, he should know how to put up an umbrella.
Jorge?
Kind of reminds me of the story of One Bad Day. You know that Joker story, One Bad Day kind of thing. And I felt it, like when you watch the Joker story. I guess I'm going off script here, but when you watch the Joker story and had that one bad day, you feel bad for him up until the point you kill somebody, up until the point you become a killer.
So up until the point where he takes the metal pole.
Right, up until the point he takes the metal. Well, actually, right up until the point he throws the whatchamacallit, he becomes a criminal and throws the fire bombs into the building.
Well, is he an actual criminal, being that it is his father's warehouse? It's destruction of what could be considered his own property.
No, that was the
nth metal property that he was destroying.
Oh, he destroyed the nth metal factory.
Yeah. The minute that he broke the law.
That's
I didn't think it was the nth metal factory, and I'll tell you why. I thought it was the one Lena Luthor purchased his factory, and I'll tell you why I thought that is because I thought nth metal couldn't burn. Think about that, people. Mm-hmm. I wanted to talk about that. I've been waiting to drop that bar because when they set that place on fire and everything caught on fire, I was like, why wouldn't they use nth metal to make their own warehouse? That's what I was really thinking.
Well, they were drunk. I don't think they were thinking too much.
No.
That,
I meant the alien, the nth metal.
The factory.
Factory.
Right.
Why did it catch fire?
They were drunk when they were making it. That's what he said.
They were drunk.
They were drunk when they were making it.
I mean, thank you for that, but
Good
that
save,
wasn't.
Zach's point, but isn't that was interesting to me because it caught fire
Way too
very quickly,
catch fire pretty quick.
especially
and
for
those
infinite.
guys. And those guys were actually had really good arms. Like they should have been pitching for the Dodgers this past week. I'm just saying.
Who knows? Who knows? But I thought that was obviously a point. It was a little bit of humor, but I mean, when they did that, is that when he crosses the line? Is that where he becomes Agent Liberty, or does it happen much before that or much after that?
I think the second he goes off script and he said it, which is funny why you said, I'm going to go off script. He had a moment in the episode where he's like, guys, I'm going to go off script. The second he starts putting his own agenda into a place where you're supposed to shape the minds of the next generation is when I stop feeling bad for you. If you're going to put your own opinions into something, which he reminded me very much, and it's so cool how they brought up, what was the... They compared him to his father compared him to somebody that was during World War II. I forgot when.
Winston Churchill.
Winston Churchill, but no, that was the speech. Mussolini. Yeah,
Mussolini.
Mussolini, which is like a horrible guy, and to be compared to him, when you start sounding like that, and Hitler, I'm sorry, I lose all sympathy for you.
A lot of sympathy for you. Well, we do know that, of course, Ben Lockwood becomes Agent Liberty, and Agent Liberty is the persona he takes on as a surprise visit from Mercy Graves, who we thought was his underling, is the one who compels him and gives him the body armor.
Right.
Heather, did you see that coming?
Only because I read it on the internet, but other than that, I was in complete shock.
There's a good payoff.
Awesome, yeah.
I enjoyed that payoff of his origin of the suit and the mask and everything that came along with it.
And I wonder if the mask is made from nth metal.
I don't think so. Didn't he get the mask out of his own father's factory?
Dad's factory, I thought it was.
And
surely.
Awkward was it that there was a steel mask like that in the factory?
In the father's factory. That's why I was wondering if it's actually made. And the reason I say it's might be made out of nth metal is simply for the fact that why else would you have a steel mask? Is this the man in the iron mask? Like what other protection? It would just hurt if someone hit you if you were wearing a steel
Where's
mask.
Leonardo DiCaprio?
It doesn't absorb anything. Let's go over one last point before we move on to news and gossip. An overall thought on Ben Lockwood, Agent Liberty, and the storyline it presents? Jorge.
I think that it was a good story to tell at this point of the season on episode 3, because we've got, just peppered with little bits of what's happening with the anti-alien movement, and then we got a glimpse of Agent Liberty last week.
They
in
brought
last
him in
week's
strong
episode.
with the stab. And
Right,
everything.
and they brought him in strong. I wanted to know more, and when you're talking about an actor like Sam Witwer, who is a great, who's really great. I want. It was nice to see him just spread his wings and do this episode.
Zach?
Yeah, coming from The Flash last season, where they had one baddie, and you got to see his origin story. I think maybe episode 20 of 24, 23, maybe. I'm not sure how many it was, but to find. It was nice to see it in The Flash, but it took way too long to understand who he was and why he's doing the things. It just kept on driving me crazy. So it's nice to understand and see his backstory, and I'm glad that we got to see it. Yeah, I think it's I like it.
Heather?
Really, really strong villain. I love that this show has such a distinct point of view, and yet they chose to go the other route for this episode, which I think makes the overall theme even stronger. Steel is hard and unbending, and that's not always a good thing.
Great. That ladies and gentlemen, is epic right there. That is a drop the mic moment. So, so Sam Witwer.
Production has to pay for that.
Sam Witwer definitely played Davis Bloom in Smallville, who was an half alien officer. So it was very interesting to see that play. Any more news and gossip? Let's toss over to Jorge with that beautiful voice.
No, I got some stuff. So this is just wrapping up this particular episode. There is an interview with Sam Witwer on comicbook.com, and he talks a little bit about this episode and Agent Liberty's origin story. Just a quick quote, and a fun fact. I don't know if you guys knew this, but this episode 403 was the first one that they filmed for the season. They filmed this before they filmed 1 and 2. So Sam says, here's the funny thing. Episode 403 was the first thing we shot this season, Witwer said. So by the time I shot the stuff you saw in episode 2, with him orating and saying these bigoted things, or him hurting Fiona, I was very, very familiar with this guy's motivations, and I understood how to play those scenes because we had shot 403 before any of that stuff. It's a pretty good interview. You guys could check it out. It's on comicbook.com. I think Heather's got some stuff too.
Yeah, so last episode we talked about the character Nia Null coming out as transgender. We actually have a quote from executive producer Robert Rovner. He says it's very important for her to speak her truth. She chose him, talking about James Olsen, because it was relevant to the position she was trying to articulate. I think they have a great relationship. It's time that we have James really taking control of Catco in a stronger way this year. As Kara is a mentor to Nia, so is James. That's really interesting.
That's
right?
great. Anything more?
Yes, I do. So, if you guys went on Instagram today, you might have seen that Melissa Benoistas posted Ruby Rose as Batwoman. And the suit is pretty epic, yo. Look at that.
Look at that suit.
Oh, yeah,
so
I
Melissa
was happy about
Benoistas, of
that.
course, is Supergirl. And right
Wouldn't you
next
guys
to-
be that excited? You're saying it's Batwoman.
That's a great
Hello.
smile. I like that.
It reminds me of Nightwing
giddy.
from. It
Oh,
reminds me of,
from,
or not Nightwing, Batman Beyond.
Batman Beyond.
Oh, Batman Beyond, yes.
It's got a Batman Beyond vibe.
Yeah, but I think we got a picture of the comic book character too, of Batwoman somewhere around there.
There we go with
There
all
it
these
is. Oh,
Lex Luthor,
there it
and
is.
then we go with
There we
the wonderful Batwoman. So it's actually a very good, I guess, interpretation of the suit.
Yeah.
It looks very familiar to us. I can't wait for that show to begin. It
Yeah,
sounds
everybody
amazing.
stay excited for the crossovers happening. On December 9th, we got it with The Flash. Then on December 10th, we have Arrow. ending December 11th with Supergirl.
Makes me watch so much show with so little time.
So
We are
much
almost
Supergirl.
running out of time right now. Let's go right to our special segment in which each one of us and you at home, I would love for you to choose a scene in the show today, especially such a tension-filled, anxiety-filled, angsty episode with a lot of hate and anger. Which scene actually maybe represents you or a slice of you, something that sat very close to your heart? Jorge? I feel like Zach already knows.
I've
go
got
with
two.
Zach.
I already have mentioned, obviously, I would have stood up in that class after hearing that rhetoric that he was spewing from his mouth. But to shed a nicer light on him, I feel what's more kin is earlier in the episode when he did run outside and he tried stopping his father's workers. He had more of a better head on his shoulders. I feel like I would do the same thing if I saw someone kind of getting beaten up or chastised for what they look like. I would stand up and try and help and defend them against whatever was happening.
Yeah, that scene.
There you go.
That scene, Jorge?
There's not
That
many
scene,
scenes.
Yeah,
in
there's not
this,
a lot of scenes in this episode that I identify with, but I
it
could
could be
identify
one-
with that one.
it could be
or
one
with
close to you.
Or when John Jones goes to Nevada to save Supergirl from falling out of the sky.
Perfect.
That one was pretty close.
And
to
gets
me.
there somehow so quickly.
We found out he's 6 feet tall, though.
We
Did
did.
you see that? The little.
We did.
Okay. I'm not sure if I saw any of that.
Second guessing choosing the Beastie Boys. I really relate to that because every time I go to karaoke, I'm like,
Watching it
"Yes!"
with you, I saw that.
It's like, oh, should I? Yes, of course you do Beastie Boys.
Yeah.
I think mine would be when John Jones flies away. Is like, you guys are all safe now, and then the house blows up. I feel that's the story of my life. We'd love to hear from each and every one of you in the comments below. We will read them out, and of course, we respond to each and every comment. Thank you so much for being part of our after show each and every week. Let's go to predictions. Supergirl this season has been more difficult than ever to predict.
Yeah.
Heather, any predictions for the next episode or this season overall?
I think this next episode we are going to get the best Supergirl fight ever. I think they really amped it up with the new suit. I think we're going to see something really cool. And I predict that Otis will have 4 scenes, one more than he usually has.
Were you counting the scenes of what Otis was in?
No,
I
they're just so little. It's just easy to.
think he was in 2 scenes.
Well, there you go. He's going to double it.
You just love yourself some
Yeah.
Otis.
I do.
Very
But he's a
cool.
memorable character, Zach.
He is. I think we are going to get more brainy next week, where we're going to try and tackle the fact that there's kryptonite in the atmosphere. And I would hope they would say, hey, what's going on with... Is Superman still off-world?
Oh,
Do we
yeah.
know? He is. Okay, cool. Well... I would hope Superman maybe comes and helps out in some. No, that wouldn't make any sense actually.
Well, I
He
think
wouldn't be able to
Superman. I
come.
think we are going to. So my predictions are actually based off of news too. Go
ahead.
Because they're casting for Lex Luthor for a recurring role right now. That's been announced. So
I could
we're going to be
shake my
seeing.
head,
Yeah, we're just
maybe,
gonna. We're gonna. We're gonna get Lex Luthor. We're gonna. I predict he's gonna be showing up pretty soon, and he's gonna become part of the fight in the sense that Agent Liberty, while we already discussed this, he's got that body armor. It's just body armor. He's going to need a little extra something if he's going to go up against Supergirl eventually. So I can see, Mercy Graves breaking Lex out of jail or something, maybe.
Well, we will find out. My prediction is simply this, is that we will see an epic fight. I appreciate more Brainy simply because I need Brainy in order to say all those tongue twisters that are very difficult for us. And Lex Luthor coming to the show will be my ultimate favorite part of this season. Once we get there. Thank you, each and every one of you, for being a part of our show. And when I say our show, I actually mean all of us. Jorge, where can they find you if you want to be found?
If I want to be found, guys, you can find me at the El Jorge on all of my social media. That is TheelJorge. Also, I do the Mayans MC panel on Tuesday nights.
Zach, let them know.
My name is Zach Silverman. You can find me all across social media at Zach with a CH Silverman 2. And on the Flash on Tuesdays at 8 o'clock, we will be talking about the next episode that's coming out.
I know she's Heather Wake, but she should be Heather Woke. Let them know where to find you, Heather.
Hey guys, on Instagram you can find me at Heather.Wake, on Twitter Heather_Wake, and this week you can also catch Tehran and myself on the Gifted panel.
Please
on Tuesday.
do. And I am Tehran, in case you had any questions, and I mean that literally at I am Tehran all across the board. That's IAMTEHRAN. Please find me and show some love. See you in the comments below, and see you next week right here on the Supergirl After Show. AfterBuzz, we're out.
Latest.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.